Good morning, everyone. We'll bring to order this meeting of the Washoe County Commission. Oops, come on, up there. For July 10th, and we will start with a salute to the flag. Mr. Westfield, would you lead us? I don't believe you've ever done that for us before.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. Watsvial. Madam Clerk, would you call the roll, please?
Of course. Marcia Burke-Bigler, Chair.
Here.
Kitty Jung, Vice Chair.
Present.
Bob Lucy is absent. Von Hartung.
Present.
Jeannie Herman. County Manager John Slaughter.
Present.
Deputy District Attorney David Watts-Vial.
Here.
I'm Nancy Parent, County Clerk. You have a quorum, Madam Chair.
Thank you. And we should put on the record that Commissioner Lucy is on business for the county in DC, so that is why he's absent today. And with that, we will go to number 3 and our first appearance. Mr. Manager.
Yes, this is item 3 on the agenda. This is an appearance by Brent Boyton, Community Outreach Coordinator for Reno Housing Authority, with a presentation and an update on the Reno Housing Authority.
Good morning, Mr. Boynton. How are you?
Good morning. Thank you, Madam Chairman and Commissioners and Mr. County Manager. I would like to begin by recognizing Amy Jones, who's the Executive Director of the Reno Housing Authority. Stand up, Amy, so they can see you. We want to thank you for having us here today. Since we are your partners in affordable housing, you might as well know a little bit about us. Okay, we do. We are here, but we're in the wrong place. Isn't this a great time to be in Washoe County?
Yes.
Unemployment is down, the economy is booming, but the housing market is tight, too tight. Our lack of available, much less affordable housing makes headlines in the Reno Gazette-Journal and in national publications. We've been in the Atlantic, the Wall Street Journal. They say we have a housing crunch, but if you're trying to make ends meet, it's a housing crisis. And if you're already living in the cheapest place in town, where can you turn? We would like to bring the community's attention to this problem and, to a lesser extent, to us. We're not the solution by ourselves, but we are part of the solution. The Reno Housing Authority is the local manifestation of the Federal Housing Act of 1937. Since 1943, we have been the pathway for federal housing assistance to come to the people of Reno, Sparks, and Washoe County. The Reno Housing Authority serves about 4,000 families and individuals. So if you were to add up every member of every household, you'd see that we provide affordable housing for about 6,000 individuals. The Reno Housing Authority is a quasi-governmental agency. We have our own Board of Commissioners, and we serve Reno, Sparks, and Washoe County. We are the pathway through many more services because of our partnerships with local nonprofits and government agencies. We bring our partners more clients because we already have the people who need their services. They give our participants one source for job training, aging issues, food, financial advice, and more. And we add efficiency because our oversight helps prevent duplication. The buildings that we rent and own through federal subsidy generally fall into the category of public housing. And we serve about 750 families through public housing. We also own some properties that we rent to families who don't need assistance but do need reasonable rent. But our largest program by far is the Housing Choice Voucher Program. More than 2,500 of our families receive vouchers. It's another form of federal assistance, but it involves private properties and private landlords. You've probably heard it called Section 8 housing, because it comes from Section 8 of the Housing Act of 1937. With vouchers, we pay a portion of the monthly rent. The tenant pays the rest. The tenant can rent from any landlord who will accept vouchers, provided the rent is considered reasonable. It's the tenant's choice. We determine if the tenant is eligible for assistance, and we do background checks, but credit and reference checks are up to the landlord. And we have to inspect and approve the house or apartment to be rented. Eligibility is determined by need. People generally qualify by making less than 30% of the average or median income for the area. This year, the median income for a family of 4 in Washoe County is $73,500 a year. So our families make less than $22,050 a year. And in case you're wondering, that's what you'd get with $10.60 an hour, 40 hours a week. That is how most of our clients get in. As their earnings improve, we let them stay, but with less assistance. We have nursing assistants working to become nurses, teaching assistants working to become teachers. We have clients from a surprising number of vocations and professions. Our biggest category demographically is the elderly and/or people with disabilities, then families with children, families without children, and veterans. Whatever the category, they usually have needs that go beyond shelter. So we offer special opportunities for our residents. The Family Self-Sufficiency Program helps them get jobs and manage their money. We even set aside a portion of their rent in escrow to help them reach their financial needs, their own goals, whether it's a new house or a new car. We have programs and services to help senior citizens, and we have special programs and events for our youngest residents. The Reno Housing Authority works to keep our public housing safe. We conduct rigorous background checks for criminal history. We don't allow convictions for any violent crime or any drug-related crime for the past 3 years, and no registered sex offenders regardless of the date. Some of our clients are walking success stories. 2 of the people that you see here are no longer receiving any housing assistance at all. And if you remember the housing or the Family Self-Sufficiency Program, Stephen here is holding his high school equivalency certificate. We see a lot of that. He enrolled in TMCC. When Autumn got off assistance, she had more than $16,000 in escrow. So one of these days, she's going to be buying her own house. Here's another project you should know about, the Neighborhood Stabilization Program. Starting in 2009, the Reno Housing Authority competed for federal money to buy houses in foreclosure and high foreclosure neighborhoods. We brought in nearly $22 million and provided a cash infusion for Northern Nevada's crippled construction industry. We fixed those houses up, we got rid of the hazards and the blight. That improves the entire neighborhood, hence neighborhood stabilization. And we added more safe, clean, affordable places to live. We now have 165 houses and duplexes scattered all over Reno, Sparks, and Washoe County. And they are usually the best-looking houses on the block. The U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, which is our federal money source, considers us a top-performing agency. They make that judgment based upon our properties, our finances, and our management. HUD uses our programs and our properties as examples to other housing agencies across the country. So those are the quick and dirty basics about the Reno Housing Authority. We take great pride in what we do, but you could well ask, are we doing enough? Here's some perspective. We currently provide federal housing assistance to more than 3,500 families in Northern Nevada. We currently have more than 2,100 families on our waiting list. And that's still not an accurate reflection of need. Right now, all our waiting lists are closed. Now that seems wrong. How can you close a waiting list? Well, if you are standing in line with a whole bunch of people applying for assistance, we're going to let some people get in line ahead of you because they have a greater need. A veteran's going to move up, a victim of domestic violence, people with disabilities. So your part of the line never moves. You're never going to get to the front because there's always someone worse off than you are. And that is one reason we close the waiting list from time to time to be fair to everybody who's standing in line. We also want to avoid creating false hope. If you fill out an application, you ought to be able to expect to get into housing in the foreseeable future. Housing authorities began as local agencies using federal money, but these days that source is drying up. We are getting less money from the federal government at the same time our rents are going up and more people are needing help here. We actually don't get enough federal money to manage federal programs. It's only the Reno Housing Authority's sound management over decades that lets us keep the federal programs going here. We're going to have to get a lot more creative in the future, and we need the whole community to get creative with us. We're currently working on plans just 2 blocks from here for the Sutro Street Senior Apartments. That's one creative solution dedicated to senior citizens. They will also help address homelessness. 1 out of 4 apartments will be for seniors moving from motels or the shelter. We need more creative solutions, and they are not going to come from Washington. They're going to come from right here. Money, land, and buildings are all things we can come up with as a community. Whatever form those solutions may take, the Reno Housing Authority stands ready to manage them. We really are all in this together. When someone becomes homeless, we all pay a price. When our community comes together to solve the problem, we all gain. The Reno Housing Authority has been quietly doing our job, helping people afford to live in Northern Nevada for 75 years. We're becoming a little more visible and a little more vocal now because the need for housing that's affordable is greater than ever. We have the experience and the expertise, and we are eager to help fill that void. The Reno Housing Authority is proud to be your partner in affordable housing. Let's make affordable possible. Thank you for your time and for what you do for our community. And if you'd like to find out more about our programs or the status of our waiting list, please log on to our website, renoha.org. And if you'd like to call me with a question or if you have a great idea, please call that number, 432-6579. I apologize for not checking out this slideshow personally. You don't possess the font that I built with. Therefore, it looked very sloppy, and I'm sorry. But I thank you very much for your time and your kind attention.
Thank you, Mr. Boynton. What interesting information, and there's no question that housing is a real serious problem in this community for those who are living below the poverty line or on lower income or whatever the problems are that they may have been dealing with, and we appreciate everything Reno Housing has done for us. I have some experience with it in my own family at times, and so I do know that it is a wonderful organization and program, so thank you for what you guys do. Commissioners? Commissioner Hartung.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Boynton, I don't know whether anyone's ever told you, you have a great voice. You should probably do something in television or maybe radio or something of that nature.
Well, I hear you take great pictures.
So Mr. Boynton and I go back many, 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 many years when he was at KTVN and then later on at Colo. So it's good to see you, and thank you so much for your involvement in this. You're a great front for this. It could not be the success it is without your assistance, so I thank you personally.
Well, I thank you. Commissioner Hartung made our starting lineup look great at Channel 2 back in the days, so I appreciate you still helping me look good now.
Thank you. Commissioner Jung, or Vice Chair Jung?
Mr. Boynton, I was going to say something very similar about that great speaking voice of yours. And I do think that the Reno Housing Authority got a real coup with you as their advocate and their activist. And I can already see a difference in the public understanding what Reno Housing does and how important you are as a partner with us. Do you get local dollars? And from whom do you get those dollars from?
That's a very good question. And no, we don't. We, at this point, are reliant upon federal funding. I think that different housing authorities across the nation have undertaken, and I've looked at several of the top performing housing authorities. Some of them rely upon local taxes. Some of them have gone into more deeply into public-private partnerships. Some have partnered with faith-based communities to create new housing sources. So at this point, we really don't have a local funding source or a state funding source. But we are working on creating a 501c3, which would make us better able to receive gifts.
Okay, and then who serves on your board? Do you have elected officials from the 3 different municipalities, or?
We
one?
actually have elected officials from only one municipality, the city of Reno, because this organization was chartered to the city.
Okay.
We contract with the county and with Sparks, so we serve all 3 entities. But the mayor is the only elected official who serves on our board.
Okay. And then I think we need to work on getting some more money towards this public-private partnership, maybe with some land grant issues. I know that there's some other foundations that are working on that as well. So I'd love to sit down with you and talk about some of the best practices you've come across in your research and how we might be able to deploy that here in Northern Nevada. And then I want to just say as well, like, some of my favorite housing in my district is Reno Housing Authority housing, because they're always so clean. People are always, they seem very happy. They get to have their pets. They get, and they're lovely properties. So I want to say well done that you don't take people who don't have as much as the rest of us and make them live in squalor. They live a very a prideful life, as they should, and beautiful properties. And anytime I've had an issue with Reno Housing, even with your predecessor, you guys are right on it, and I appreciate that for all you do and what you do in this community. So great to work with you, and thank you for taking me to the Make-A-Wish Foundation breakfast last month.
Thank you, Commissioner Jung. And by the way, it has been my honor to stand up here, but if you ever really want to get to real issues and talk about ways we can improve in the future, Amy is the real expert.
She's a rock
here.
star, yeah. Yeah,
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other questions? Thank you guys so much. We really appreciate you coming forward. And please do take the opportunity to work with Vice Chair Jung. She, although all of us have a vested interest in housing, workforce housing, low-income housing, whatever type, senior housing, veterans housing, Commissioner Jung is our advocate who works the hardest on this committee on that issue. And so I really do hope that you guys can work together and see how we can help you.
Yep.
Thank you. Have a great day. Mr. Manager.
Next item is public comment. This is item 4 on the agenda. This is public comment, and comment heard under this item is limited to 3 minutes per person and may pertain to matters both on and off the commission agenda. The commission will also hear public comment during individual action items with comment limited to 3 minutes per person, and comments are to be made to the commission as a whole.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. I have several people on the list, so we'll call Miss Tammy Holtstill first. Thank you. Sorry about that, Tammy. That was my tongue got in the way of my eye teeth.
And I will need the overhead, please.
Could we have the overhead, please?
Good morning, Tammy Holtstill, Lemon Valley Swan Lake Recovery Committee. The water's still there. I'm still here for the record. I'd like to start off with something that came to mind was the Titanic. As the ship's going down the road and everything looks great and they're barreling along, and this goes for development, put development in this big ship, all of a sudden they realized they had this big iceberg that they were coming up to. And instead of trying to change the course, they hit the iceberg. But instead of trying to correct it, they just kept right on going. That is where we're at with this. With Lemon Valley, with Swan Lake, Whites Lake, and Silver Lake. You've got a ship that is sinking right now, and unless you change the course, it's not going to get any better. You have staff that keep telling you things that somehow they don't have all the information, or they don't want to give you all the information, and it's time to start questioning. Again, this is the STED from the Reno STED Airport. It shows a pattern. I've shown this to you many times. Last year, or 2017, was not the greatest winter of winters. It wasn't the greatest winter in 2 years. It wasn't the greatest winter in 3 years. We had other years that were that way, and we didn't have the flooding. To give you an idea about staff, I know all of you received this email. This email talks about last Tuesday night and the great turnout that the Lemon Valley residents finally said enough. And if you haven't watched it, you need to. You had staff that didn't give the proper information. You have staff that's not putting all the information out on the website. One of the commissioners mentioned there was a letter from the city of Reno dated June. I asked for that letter because it should be supplied. I have not received it yet. In fact, I had a staff send me the same thing I already had. There's an issue. Your ship is falling apart. So, with the residents finally realizing that voices count, I have included, and they are now doing, this letter that you have received from me, and it will be going on to the president, to the Department of the Interior, of the things that need to be taken care of that have not been taken care of in this for this county up in the North Valleys. You were told in a thing about stilling wells, and I've spoken about it, but yet it didn't get done. Even though the governor wanted them and requested them, it wasn't done by your staff because they didn't feel it was necessary. Here's a look at the lakes. They still look the same way. And as our hydrologist stated, if you don't have all the data, you can't make any decisions. Garbage in is garbage out. And you don't have all the data because you haven't done the stilling wells. Thank you.
Irwin.
Good morning. My name is Kent Irvin, E-R-V-I-N. I'm co-organizer of the group promoting safety on Peavine Trails. I'm here to support moving forward on a fire season ban on hazardous target shooting, agenda item 10. Target shooting is the cause of many recent wildland fires in the area, so it's just common sense to advise residents when conditions are especially dangerous. Ordinances matter. Publicity about public safety issues matters. 2 years ago this week, you approved changes to the congested area boundaries on Peavine. Although we don't have detailed data, I can report that the conflicts between trail usage and target shooting have decreased since that ordinance change, and we now receive fewer reports of problems. Please move ahead on agenda item 10. It would be best to align any county regulations on either timing of target shooting bans or the types of targets and ammunition that are allowed with those of the Bureau of Land Management, where a lot of these issues also occur. So thank you very much, and please move ahead on agenda item 10.
Thank you, Mr. Irvin. Next is Mr. John Garfinkel. Garfinkel. Oh, there's no F in my language, in my writing here, so.
Okay,
Mr. Garfinkel, welcome.
thank you. I have a request to make. If I'm unclear, they said you can't talk to me, but you talk to the Housing Authority. So I have epilepsy and Parkinson's, and nice war gift. So please ask me questions if I'm unclear. I used to be a school teacher, so it was easy for me to organize my thoughts and talk. But when I speak to a timer, it makes it even more difficult, okay? I'm here talking about a rabies case, and I think the county should have more responsibilities in the event of a rabies bite. When you're bitten by an animal, in this case, I'm talking about a dog. I was bitten in Link Piazzo Dog Park out in Hidden Valley. When I was bitten, I confronted the owners, and it was witnessed by other people, and asked for their address and name. The protocol is to immediately find out from their vet if the animal is rabies shots. If it does, then I'm in no danger except for possible infection. They left the park at about 60 miles an hour with their dog in tow and drove out of the park, could not get a license number. So I called animal control. Animal control came to my home, took a picture of the dog bite, and asked me if I had an address or anything. Of course, I did not. And they said they would try to find the owner of the dog. I had wished at that time that animal control had been in the park by some miracle, because sometimes they are. I later found out from animal control itself, I went down to Washoe County Animal Control, even if they had been in the park and confronted the people whose dog it was and asked for an address or a name, they couldn't detain those people. Those people sped out of the park at 60 miles an hour, but animal control has no arrest authority and they cannot contain those people. If those people had said, we refuse to talk to you, we're leaving the park, you can't stop us, that would have been the situation according to animal control. They could have left the park without identifying them or showing a license or any place of residence. On top of that, I also found out that, oh, can I continue?
As quickly as you can.
I'll do it as quick as I can.
Okay.
Okay? If they had an address, they could have gone over to the address where the dog lived and knocked on the door. The owner could have refused to talk to them. They cannot arrest. When you have a rabies bite, you have this choice. You immediately go to your doctor,
Yes.
and you have a choice of getting the rabies shot or not getting the rabies shot. If you don't get the rabies shot and you have rabies, you die.
I understand.
If you get the rabies shot, I have a paper from the doctor here. Some people have an allergic reaction. It's very rare, but it can happen. You die.
Thank you, Mr. Garfinkel. I appreciate you coming forward and providing us with the information. And it's
Can I
something we'll
have
look
one
into.
last sentence?
One last
Washoe
sentence.
County needs more than citation. They could go to the house and issue a citation. That takes days. The rabies shots must start immediately. Washoe County Animal Control needs the authority to arrest and maintain and get that information immediately. The patient who has been bitten does not have days to wait.
Thank
The
you.
rabies shots must start immediately.
Thank you. Appreciate your time. Next on the list is Miss Elise Weatherly.
Good morning, Elise Weatherly, Washoe County resident. I wanted to say thank you to Mr. Garfinkel, just because I had an issue recently too with some Washoe County Animal Control. I had to wait out in the park for them to show up so that nobody would walk by this rattlesnake that was out on the path, you know, and it took them a while to get there and everything. And then I tried to get the dog. She recommended my dog get a pedigree because she goes, he needs a toe clip. So I went, okay. So I took him down to the pet hospital, and guess what? The vets can see him without the rabies shots, but the groomers can't. So this whole thing about rabies is like, it's pretty interesting. And I thought you guys might be interested in follow-up, because when you're a good employee and you're a good boss, what do? You follow up, right? You see how things are going. I wish Mr. Boynton would have stayed here, because he talked about false hope, and what I would like to do is a reality check on our HA for the homeless situation, right? Basically, when I listened to him, I thought, well, number one, it's citizen sentimentality, number one. Number two, it's anti-capitalism. Number three, if they do a background check on people, how about doing this? How about you guys doing this, a drug check? The reason I'm asking for a drug check is, did you know that I knew 2 people that were on disability because of, what do you call them, opiates? Brad Templin and Fred North were both on drugs. They were disabled. The government gave them money so that they could go take these kind of drugs. So the people that are not making good wages, and I would say thank you, El Dorado, for that. You know, we pay the lowest wages here in town, and so people don't have the income that they should. However, what you're doing too is you are enabling people by giving them really nice places. By the way, I am supposed to be dead, as you know. I would almost wear my blue, instead of my red shoes today, I was going to wear my blue hospital socks, because it was about 2 years ago that I spent a lot of time in the hospital getting ready to die, and I refused. So here I still am. But what I want to say is that these housing places that these guys are doing, guess what? My own daughter is in a drug-infested neighborhood, and her senior friend, guess what he does? He takes drugs. So what I've been doing, just to give you a little follow-up, I Twittered Donald Trump every once in a while. I say, hey, Donald, can you please do away with 501(c)(3)s? Because all they are there. Have you guys ever heard of Jesus going in and tipping over tables in his father's house? Because he says, you're turning this into a house of business? Well, guess what the 501(c)(3)s are doing with a smile on their face? They're not going about the father's business while they're ripping people off. Okay, so what I would like to do is just say, before I have to end, I did something kind of cute this morning. I found the obituary from my ex-husband, Michael Earl Weatherly, because I was the one that initiated the autopsy on him that found out that he died of a methamphetamine intoxication. So I put a little blurb on the obituaries. You know, they always say, have good news, right? Oh, we so love him. We're so going to miss him. And I said, it was so sad that he died of a drug overdose, and it's so sad that he's taking his daughter down the same path. We will miss him. Thanks, you guys. Sorry I'm so negative.
Thank you, Ms. Weatherly. Next is Mr. Michael Clark. Good morning, Mr. Clark.
And for
Good
the
morning,
record,
Mike Clark, Washoe County Assessor, but I'm here as a private citizen today, so I'll put in for vacation time so no one thinks that I'm taking advantage of county funds for this
Could we have
meeting.
the overhead, please? Thank you.
I'm here to talk about the most recent election that we had here in the county and what I feel was incorrect on the ballots. We had numerous candidates who used nicknames on the ballot. NRS 293.2565 is quite clear about this. You're supposed to use your given name and your surname, and you have the ability to use a nickname. There was a particular one candidate out of all the candidates on the ballot only used his initial. I don't think that was very fair to the voters in this county. If somebody wants to do a fact check, somebody wants to Google this person, somebody wants to look at public records to find out a little bit more about the candidate, and the candidate is intentionally using just an initial to make it more difficult for people to do their research. I brought it to the Registrar of Voters' attention, and she told me he'd always done it this way. He'd run in other elections. My thought is, did he walk up and tell the clerk at the counter that he wanted his filing filled out this way, or did the clerk at the counter tell him he should do this? I mean, there was a violation of NRS rule here, and I want to find out what the ramifications are and what the penalties are. And do we as citizens get to pick and choose the NRS statutes that we think apply to us? Is there, the people get to pick something that they don't like and they don't think it's right, so they can violate it? If I'm speeding down the road and I get pulled over by a trooper, can I tell him I always speed here and he'll let me go? I mean, the issue is, when I went to talk to them about this, they didn't admit that this violation had occurred, and they acted like because he'd done it before, he had the right to do it again. I don't feel that's correct. I think we've certified this election, and I think this election's tainted. I don't think the public had an opportunity to research this particular person and find out who they were. And I'd just like to know what the ramifications might be. The clerk at the counter helped this person do it. Why did the clerk do that? The clerk at the counter at the Registrar of Voters should be an expert on election law. The clerk at the counter should have told this candidate what the law was and filled out their paperwork accordingly. So thank you for your time.
and
Next is, yes, Madam Clerk, did you have something to say?
I do. Mr. Clark provided me with some documents which I distributed to you earlier, and he just recently handed me a whole nother stack of documents which I'll place on the public record.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Clark. Next is Ms. Candy Green.
Hello, my name is Candy Green, and for a living, I do a lot of marketing and PR. And because of that, I spend an unhealthy amount of time on social media, which I'm not saying it's unhealthy, but you're on there a lot because it's my job. And my comments are going to be directed to Commissioner Herman. I believe, and I'm going to read this, as commissioners, you're required to put on record any possible communication with people involved in issues that are before the commission. On social media, I see, and unless the people are posting incorrectly, that you're having a lot of meetings with people who are in the Lemon Valley Swan Lake area, which I believe there was a lady speaking to that today. I don't ever hear you on the commission making that statement that you've had this meeting. I like transparency in my government, and I'm not feeling that from you. And whereas I don't live in your commission area, I do live in the county. And all of you, when you took the oath to be commissioners, you represent me, whether I live in your district or not, or in your commission area. I'm also really kind of, and I'm going to probably slaughter this poor man's name, I'm a little upset by what I'm reading too about a gentleman, and I'm sorry, I believe his name is George, and it's Newell, that there's some chatter about he's suing the county, and you were involved in, I guess, meetings with him, and possibly were a realtor broker for him. And again, I don't know anything about this. I've been to a lot of these meetings, and I've heard the commissioners. In fact, I was at one where Commissioner Lucy got up and left the room because he had acknowledged that he knew someone that was in front of the commission, and it was an item in front of the commission. And I just really would like to say, I'd like to see you step up and be more transparent for me. I appreciate your time.
Thank you, Ms. Green. We appreciate you being here. Seeing no further public comments, we will close public comment and return it back to the board. Mr. Manager.
Sorry, my microphone's hacking up on me. Next item is item 5. This is Commissioners, County Manager's announcements, reports, and updates, requests for information, or topics for future agendas.
Do you have anything, Mr. Manager? Okay. Commissioners, I don't see any name on the list. Does anybody have anything? Commissioner Vice Chair Jung?
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. I wanted to let the commission know that I attended the press conference for the Child Assistance Center getting a $5,000 donation from our vendor, It's My Community Store. They chose them for that month of their donation that they give to us. And we got good coverage on that, actually. Also, I do have an interest, I didn't want to bring it up with Mr. Boynton here because he has no authority, but I believe that the Reno Housing Authority, because it is federal funds that's coming into our community, of which we all pay into, that board should have a representative from Washoe County Commission as well as the Sparks City Council, because after all, we deal with people that need housing as well. And I don't know how to do that, Mr. Slaughter, but that is a request that I would like to put out there. Just so you know, the gentleman that had the rabies case, he is in my district, and staff is already working on contacting him to make sure that we address his needs. I also would like to ask Ms. Cheyenne Schul what the best practice are when it comes to any sort of law enforcement abilities, because I know the code enforcement officers at the city of Reno do have arresting capabilities. So, I mean, I don't know how far we want to go with that, but what is the best practice, and how does that keep all of us safe in the community? And then finally, I wanted to announce that on July 21st at 10 a.m. on Foothill Road, the Truckee Meadows Fire Protection District will be opening its brand new station. So that should be a grand event and a much needed facility considering what they used to be in the Walmart parking lot. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair Jung. Commissioner Huffman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So to dovetail on Commissioner Jung's request, I think what I'd like to know is, and with respect to dog bites, is they may not be able to arrest the dog owner, but I believe that they can incarcerate or detain the dog, which is obviously the proper thing to do. The arrest of someone for a dog bite is a civil issue, in my opinion, and needs to be taken to a civil court. But the need to know if the dog has current rabies shots is an immediate one, and I believe that if they do know who it is, they can detain the dog, and I'd like to know that. As most of you are aware, the Southeast Connector is now open. We had an opportunity to attend on the 6th. It was a great event. It was well attended. There is now a 5.5-mile stretch that's been envisioned since, I'm told a number of different dates, but I know at least since the early 60s, originally called the Tahoe Pyramid Link. I know when I moved here back to Nevada in 1980, it was being talked about. There was lots of chatter about it. And we've finally seen it come to fruition. It's a great asset to the community. It's going to provide a huge amount of connectivity to the eastern side of the valley. It goes from essentially the end of Veterans Parkway to Gregg Street, where it intersects into Sparks Boulevard. And you can get on I-80 there. I think we're going to see huge changes. This is just my opinion. We're going to see huge changes in traffic patterns, especially from the people who live in the South Valleys, who utilize 580, 395 in the morning in the Spaghetti Bowl, and McCarran as well. I think it's gonna be a real game changer. So kudos to everyone that's been working on that for years, Mr. Moreno. Well done to the RTC team and all the individuals, and I'd like to thank Madam Chair and Commissioner Herman for both being in attendance in the audience. That was a really, really nice presentation. And we had all manner of elected officials, including Senator Heller, representatives from just about everybody's office. And so it was a good time. And again, I'm pleased to say it's now open. And by the way, the bike path that traverses the Southeast Connector, or now, I believe are we calling it Veterans Parkway, all the way through? Michael, thank you. That traverses that. It's a great ride. It's a great ride. So I'm looking. It's all downhill, Madam Chair. There are no uphills, both ways, all downhill. But I will put on the record now, I would like to, I'm going to use the word challenge the city of Reno to have discussions about the old clubhouse there that is on Pembroke. I believe it to be a perfect place for overflow for the children's cabinet, because the children's cabinet is just a stone's throw away, and that clubhouse is currently sitting empty. I've not heard that they have a need for it. I've heard that they wanted to do, weddings and other events there, but I've not seen that. But I would love to have the conversation to see if the children's cabinet could utilize that, because it is literally, I don't believe it more than a half to as much as maybe 3/4 of a mile away, because the children's cabinet facility is down on the corner of Longley and Rock at that point. And that's all I have, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Hartung. Commissioner Herman.
Okay. I just wanted to make a comment about a previous speaker. And my district is very large, and I travel through it a lot. I visit with people, and I just would like to know what qualifies as a meeting. If I talk to 2 or 3 people at a time, is that a meeting that I need to tell people about, or what? Just curious. Because I would spend a half an hour to 45 minutes every 2 weeks before you if I had to say something about every person I talked to.
Mr. Watsfield, wouldn't it be more appropriate for her to take this offline, to have this discussion with you?
Yes, but very broadly, there's not a requirement. I mean, commissioners talk to lots of people about lots of things, and there's specific requirements in the ethics provisions and that dictate when a commissioner has to disclose. So without having any specifics, we'd just really be engaging in a lot of hypothetical conversations at this point. So somewhere between disclosing every single person you've ever talked to and disclosing none is a middle ground. But that's what the ethics covers. So I don't mean to be flip about it, but
Just curious, okay. Because yesterday I had 5 different, what I guess would be called a meeting because there was more than one person there. I don't know, but we'll find out. So last night, North Valley's CAB met, and we elected new officers, and it was very educational. The program that was presented by Mr. Webb was excellent, and he did a fine job there. So I think that's just about all I have to say then. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Herman. Anything else, anybody? Okay, we will close this and move on to the consent agenda, Mr. Manager.
And Madam Chair, before we start the consent, can we go back to number 4 for just a moment? I forgot to enter something on the record.
Yes, absolutely. What
Okay.
are we going back to?
Public comment, agenda
Oh,
item
okay,
number
number
4.
four.
I had received earlier this morning an email from Anne Marie Grant requesting that her comments be placed on the record during public comment today, and I will do that with your permission.
Yes, please.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Manager, we've got the consent agenda.
It is item 6 today, represented in items 6A through 6F2.
Okay, any changes to it from your perspective, Mr. Manager?
None.
Commissioners, anything you'd like pulled or changed? Okay, yes, comments? Commissioner Hartung?
Just, and we can certainly wait for the approval of this, but I'll wait for the approval. I'd like to just make a short comment on 6B1.
Okay, Commissioner Herman, I see you have a comment. Is your mic on? D?
No, C
is
as
Oh,
in
C,
cat.
okay.
Being this is a cleanup type situation, I was wondering if, it seems like there are more than just public places that they clean up from time to time. And I was just wondering if maybe somehow we could add some funding into this area to help people that their homes are burned and they don't have funds, they're seniors, whatever, and a lot of times they need some kind of organized help to get their burned out home off of their property. And I know a lot of people that are willing to help, like veterans groups and this sort of thing, that maybe we could combine some of these things, so just curious.
Could you ask for for that to be an agenda item placed so that we can discuss it in a future
Okay,
meeting?
let's please make that a request.
Okay, Mr. Manager, would you put that? All right, thank you. I also see that Ms. Elise Weatherly would like to comment. Ms. Weatherly, please come forward in public comment, and please, we are opening public comment on the consent agenda. Please tell us which item you're speaking or items you're speaking on.
Elise Weatherly, Washoe County resident, 6B2 and also 6.3. Ms. Holstead had said something about the Titanic, right? That we're kind of in a Titanic situation. And I know this has to do with RTC and transportation and everything, but what I do see is that we are growing too big too fast. And the reason that I say I believe this, I actually had a chance to talk to a Washoe County or Reno Police Department, I think it was Reno Police Department person, who said, I said, why are all these cases not being pursued? You know, why are all these drug dealers allowed to do what they're doing? And he said, there's not enough people on the force, that we have grown so fast and so big that we can't keep up with it. I see the same thing with the animal control. So, you know, the lady that I had to wait for to come to the snake, they're busy people. There's not enough of them. We have so much money we spend too much on Wells Fargo. We spend too much on cleanup. We spend too much on homeless. We need to start spending some more money on the police. I know the fire department is doing well, but all I will say is, please, as a citizen, just get out the checkbook and let's take a look at what we really need to be safe. And we need these men, these uniformed men and women, that their whole lives, their whole job is to protect us, right? When it comes down to it, is how clean something is. Does it matter as much as if we are being protected from vicious people, because they are out there, and some of them actually ride the bus. Okay, thank you.
We will close public comment, seeing no more, and bring it back to the board. If there's no more comments, Commissioners, I'm looking for a motion. I have a motion from Commissioner Hartung, a second from Commissioner Jung. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries 4-0 with Commissioner Lucy absent.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Hartung.
Just under 6B1, I'd just like to thank Allison Wong, Mr. Jesse Haw, Mr. Donald Tatro, Mr. Dave Pierce, for the time that they're spending on the Building Enterprise Fund Advisory Committee. It requires a lot of time, and
Yes, it does.
all of those folks are very, very busy, and I appreciate their service. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Good, thank you very much. Commissioner, Vice Chair Jung, do you have the block vote?
I do. Did we take a vote? Oh, yeah, we did.
Oh, yes, we did.
We did. We just went a little backwards. Yes, I would, sorry. In the form of a motion, I would put that we put the following items into block vote. 7, 8, 9, 10, thank you, Mr. Irvin, he's gone. 11, 12, and 13.
Okay. Commissioner Hartung.
I have a question with respect to item 10.
Do you have a second on the motion?
Second.
Yes, thank you.
I
So
apologize.
we have a motion and a second? Now.
I just have a question, just for staff, on how we will approach item 10, and if we will essentially mirror what the BLM wants to do, or will it be wholly separate, and can we take any action and stop people from utilizing BLM land? Because we're not, we don't enforce the rules and the regulations on BLM land.
Madam Chair, so we leave 10 in the block vote, but just have the question answered.
Yeah, Mr. Solero can just answer
If I
that
could
question.
perhaps read all of the items
idea.
first, and then we'll come back to item 10.
Thank you.
Mr. Manager, thanks.
Item 7 is a request of Board of County Commissioners to acknowledge payment to Xerox in an amount not to exceed $228,224.74 for fiscal year 2018-19 for annual maintenance and support agreement for the Second Judicial District Court's case management system. Item 8 is a recommendation to award request for proposal number 3050-18 for library automated materials handling equipment for the Sparks and South Valley's library branches to the most responsive bidder, MK Solutions, in the proposed amount of $244,650 for a period June 8, 2018 through June 31, 2018. If approved, authorize purchasing and contract manager to execute the agreement. Item 9 is a recommendation to approve, effective July 1, 2018, the reclassification of a management analyst, pay grade N, to government affairs manager, pay grade Q, manager's office, a librarian 3, pay grade O, to a new job classification of collections development manager, pay grade O, library, a new job classification of human resource proctor, pay grade C, human resources, 3, new human services support specialist 2, FTEs, pay grade H, in the District Attorney's Office upon award of a fiscal year 18-19 VOCA grant funding as evaluated by the Job Evaluation Committee and the Hay Group, the elimination of unused or obsolete job classifications as listed in Exhibit A, and authorize Human Resources to make the necessary changes. Net fiscal impact of salaries and benefits is estimated at $246,750 in fiscal year 18-19. Item 10 is a recommendation to approve a request to initiate proceedings to amend the Washoe County Code, Chapter 50, pursuant to a request by commissioners to allow for limiting target shooting within Washoe County when conditions present a danger for wildland fire, and direct the county clerk to submit the request to the district attorney for preparation of a proposed ordinance pursuant to Washoe County Code Sections 2.030 and 2.040. Item 11 is a recommendation to award a bid and approve the agreement to the lowest responsible bidder for the South Truckee Meadows wastewater reclamation facility. Utility operations modular office building project. Staff recommends Brycon Construction in the amount of $199,837. Item 12 is a recommendation to appoint Travis Steve Jackson to fill one of 3 vacant seats on the Reno-Tahoe Airport Authority Airport Noise Advisory Panel with a term effective July 10, 2018 through July 10, 2020. And item 13 is a recommendation to extend the appointment of Sean Shea and Michelle Spencer to the Washoe County Advisory Board to manage wildlife for an additional 3 months to end October 1, 2018.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. My screen is frozen, and we're
Okay.
attempting to fix that right now.
Mr. Solero could come up and speak to the question that Commissioner Hartung
Thank you.
had on item 10.
Yes, Mr. Solero.
Same question.
My main question.
Microphone.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for the reminder. My main question is I don't disagree with this direction, but how can we adopt something, if the BLM adopts it, it's one thing, because then there's a mechanism in place. But if the BLM doesn't adopt, how do we deal with this?
For the record, Dave Solero, Assistant County Manager. In my conversations with the District Attorney's Office, Washoe County Code is essentially a law that we are able to enact your ability to limit discharge of firearms. We've got this already in our code for congested areas. So this is essentially, we're working to take this a step further so that when those conditions warrant, you would actually transfer the ability for the county manager to make that decision on behalf, with consultation with the fire chief, to limit shooting when conditions exist, and then he will have to come back and bring that report to you all. I think what you're asking is whether we can limit someone's ability to discharge firearms on someone else's property. So what we're talking about here is essentially setting a law within Washoe County, unincorporated Washoe County, that you cannot discharge a firearm at certain points of the time when it doesn't make sense to do those things.
Okay, so with all due respect, how do we enforce that?
That's that is the question we come up against with a lot of the
Yes.
laws and things we have in place. I think a lot of that is the education piece, and this would certainly allow us to educate the public about why we are making the decision at those times. This isn't a blanket statement to limit discharge of firearms. This is simply during those periods of time. I think the next potential piece might be talking with the fire district about then next steps after someone starting a fire and really what that looks like.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, what we would do is we would say, okay, it's a red flag warning day, and ergo you cannot discharge firearms in unapproved places, in just open areas. You have to be on an approved range.
That is the intent of what we're trying to accomplish here, something very similar to that, yes.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, thank you, Commissioner Hartung, and I can't, it's not allowing me to get back to the agenda. Could you give us just a minute? Thank you.
I have something to say.
Okay, I think
have-
Commissioner Herman does also.
Sorry.
Would you like me to just put their pictures up on the wall so you can see them?
No. I don't know, it's not on here.
Yeah, no, I don't see it either. We need the resident expert.
I don't, it's,
Granis.
there it
we
is.
go. Commissioner Jung.
I knew there was somebody who's smarter than I was.
Me too.
We got it.
We got it. Thanks, Jen. She's back.
Thanks, Jen. Okay.
I thought that was Google. I didn't see Granis.
Me too. Commissioner Herman is next.
Microphone.
It's not on.
There it
It
is,
is
now it
now.
is.
It keeps kind of going on and off, so kept pushing it, but, all right. So I'm thinking a little bit of a constitutional, thing is going on here. I'm kind of thinking that two people, I'd rather leave it with the commission, because that's almost, a little bit different.
What
We're
time?
talking about 10.
Okay.
Okay. So I worry about this because, the arguments are going to be coming back at us. Okay, so construction equipment can cause a fire, but we don't stop construction. Little kids with matches start fires, and we don't ban little kids. And
What a great idea.
I think, yeah. But there's a lot of things that can start fires. We're not going to be able to ban lightning. But shooting has been aimed at pretty strongly, and I just think that what we need to get back to the responsibility. I mean, you can advise people not to do something, but if you say you can't, and maybe it could be proven in a court of law that it would be unconstitutional to try and ban it. But what I'm saying is that I think we need to, go more on responsibility for that fire rather than banning everything and putting it in the hands of just two people. That's just my opinion. I just wonder if we have the ability to do that, to take our responsibility, which is ours now, and deposit it with somebody else. Kind of a, like I say, Second Amendment issue.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mr. Solero? Oh, okay. Commissioner, Vice Chair Jung?
Thank you very much. Many people would ask why this took so long. That's because we had to do a lot of acrobats in terms of legal, gymnastics to have even any sense that the manager could say, red flag day, based on the National Weather Service, based on the fire experts, you will be fined. And I think our fire chief made that very clear last night on the news when he said, when we find you, it's hundreds of thousands of dollars that you owe us for your mistake or your ignorance or whatever it may be. So I think that goes to both of those points that were brought up by both commissioners. And even though it took a while, and we've been working on this together for a long time, I think it gives us another tool in our tool shed to, in as much as we can, prevent this. How many of these people, though, really get on Twitter? How many of them watch the news that say don't shoot, or say, I know how to handle a shot? I grew up with gun nuts, so I can just see them saying, I know exactly what to do at any time. They don't. So we can only push it so hard and so far. And you are right that is personal responsibility is what we're going for, because when the manager makes that call and we can determine that somebody did this after the manager had said that, we do have full prosecuting ability. So I'm in full support of this. This is a baby step because of all the different managements of that mountain. But this, at least Washoe County is being responsible and holding the people that use our Peavine Mountain on our land. We also hold them responsible, so.
Thank you.
No, it's not just Peavine. I'm sorry. I was thinking of Peavine because that was the impetus. You're right. It's not Moon Rocks. It was Spanish Spring. Well, Moon Rocks is right out there.
Yeah. Thanks, Vice Chair Jung. Appreciate
Thank
that.
you.
Mr. Manager.
Yes, Madam Chair. As a way of explanation to the board, but also to the public of what this action is today, this is a request to initiate the proceedings to begin drafting a draft ordinance. So there will be lots of discussion about this. We'll take comments that we heard today, as well as discussions with the fire chief and the community into consideration as we draft this, if this moves forward today.
Okay, good. Thanks. Commissioner Hartung?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And Mr. Solero, I'd like to see what the BLM, what their direction is. And I understand that this is a very limited, yesterday was crazy. Maybe unwisely, we were up on the roof all day, and I had tools literally blowing off the top of our cooler, and screwdrivers and et cetera, heavy tools that you wouldn't think, but it was pretty vicious. The other thing that I'd like to know is I'd like some statistics from the chief with respect to the number of fires, because I know that there's probably been at least, and I shouldn't put a number on it, but I think there has been at least 3 or 4 fires recently that were known to be caused, the cause was target shooting. And so I'd like some of that, because that gives us a little more of an edge to say, look, it does exist, it is out there. And I don't know whether we just ban shooting, because I don't think shotguns are the same as a rifle or a pistol. So but I think it's probably easier to just ban shooting, period, unfortunately. During red flag, it's not ban shooting at all times, it is ban shooting during red flag days, which are, and then What would be also nice to know, Mr. Solero, is the number of red flag days that we had in the 2017 season, and maybe the number that we've had thus far in the 2018 season. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Commissioner Herman.
Frog.
I would hate to have to vote against all these in order to vote against this one item, so can we separate it?
We can pull it out for a separate vote, yes. So we need to have,
The mover so amends that we pull out item 10 so that Commissioner Herman can vote against it.
Seconder agrees.
okay. Madam Clerk, you have that? Okay. All right. So I see no public comment on any of these items. Do we have public comment, Madam Clerk?
I see a request from Commissioner Herman for agenda item number 7.
Okay, so, all right. So we have no public comment. We have a motion and a second for items, the block items, which are 7, 8, 9, 11, 12, and 13. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Please cast your vote on the screen and then affirm your vote up above. Motion carries 4-0 with all commissioners voting and Commissioner Lucy absent. Okay, and then we will go to item 10. Do I have a motion to approve?
Second with discussion, Madam Chair.
Okay, we will go to, we have a, we have a motion and a second on item 10, and we have discussion. Commissioner Hartog.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And so these are, Mr. Solero, there you are. I lost you for a moment, I'm sorry. I'm going to support this today with the knowledge that you're going to bring us back some information that gives us better tools to understand what's going on at that first reading. That's why I'm supporting this right now. So because there's a lot of things that I still need to understand before I can be fully supportive of this. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Hartung. And also under comments, I would say that I also want to see what we're going to, obviously, we're going to draft an ordinance here, and we'll all want to see what that is. But I'm really supportive of this because this is a problem that we're dealing with in this high fire danger area, and a lot of houses are, I mean, I'll always go back to the Oakland Hills fire, which scares me to death. And so I'd like to see us have some ability to control this particular problem. So do we have did I hear a motion to approve this? Okay, we have a motion and a second. I see no public comment. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Please cast your vote on the screen and affirm your vote above. Oh, and those opposed, no. The motion carries 3-0 with Commissioner Herman voting no and with Commissioner Lucy absent today. Thank you. Sorry about that, but we did get it on the record, so. All right. So now we are moving on to item 14. Mr. Manager.
Item 14 is recommendation to appoint John Arascata as Washoe County Public Defender, effective August 20, 2018, with an annual salary of $173,576. Madam Chair, if I could open this item. I believe everyone is aware, and he's in the room also, our current public defender, Mr. Bosler, is retiring from Washoe County effective August 31st of this year, and recognition of that will come at a later meeting. But back on April 24th of this year, the board approved a recruitment process for an appointment of a new Washoe County Public Defender. That process included a recruitment, job postings that were made, applications were reviewed by a committee, and without naming the individual members, the committee consisted of members from the Washoe County Bar, the State Bar of Nevada, Federal Public Defender. We had members of the Criminal Defense Bar in private practice were on the application review committee. representation from the NAACP of Sparks, Reno and Sparks, the ACLU, and Washoe Legal Services. We're all members of the Application Review Committee. They spent time reviewing all of our applications and provided a ranked listing of candidates. 6 candidates were then interviewed by a panel that included myself, Assistant County Manager Kate Thomas, and Clark County Public Defender Phil Cohn. And he's not here today, but I want to publicly recognize and thank Phil Cohn for his participation in that all-day event. He came up from Clark County to do that. So based on that process, I am very, very pleased and very happy to make my recommendation of Mr. Arascata. He stood out in a number of areas. He is well rooted in the community. He also has spent some time in our public defender's office back in the 90s, was in private practice for a number of years, has practiced extensively at all levels through municipal court, state district court, Nevada Supreme Court, Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. Comes to us very qualified and very, very excited to take on this challenge. So with that, I would be happy to answer any questions. I know Mr. Arascata is in the room and may want to say something, but I will turn it back to the chair for the rest
Thank
of
you,
the
Mr.
proceedings.
Manager. And I know that there were a number of highly qualified candidates, and so we are clearly getting somebody who will do fabulous work for us, and we're excited to have you here. Mr. Arascata, I'd love to invite you up to say a few words if you'd like to.
Never invite a lawyer to say a few
I know.
Come on up, our loquacious friend. Hopefully not. I do want to share a little bit about myself with each and every one of you, but I'd also like to start by thanking the staff for the very professional selection process that they conducted. It's my understanding it was different than past selection processes. I didn't participate in those, but I found this to be highly respectful of the candidates and very professionally done. I also want to acknowledge the other candidates. They were fine applicants, and I'm very grateful to be here today. Since 1983, see, I told you don't want me to go back here and address a lot, but I'll be brief. In the last 35 years, there's been 3 public defenders. Each of them has had an impact upon me personally, which I believe has brought me here in front of you today asking for your vote to be selected as the next public defender. David Paragary was my father's best friend. David, though, throughout my formative years was there through hunting and fishing and everything else you can think of, providing quite a bit of guidance. David instilled upon me being respectful to others, being kind, caring. Anyone that remembers David Paragary knows that he was just a gentleman. Michael Specchio was the next public defender. Michael was my first true boss. He hired me as a deputy public defender. He was my mentor. Michael instilled upon me confidence, to be fearless regardless of the odds, and to be committed. And then Jeremy Bosler, who I will be succeeding. Jeremy's a colleague, a peer, and a friend. I've watched Jeremy over the last 13 years transition the office of the public defender to be a more holistic approach to addressing the needs of the criminal justice system and our community. Jeremy has, and I'm a work in progress, is instilling upon me humility, teaching me to listen more, be more collaborative. Each of every one of these 3 public defenders affected me personally. In a large part, they've made me the person I am today, the lawyer I am today, and the public defender that I will strive to become. We must always remember the core mission of the Public Defender's Office is to provide criminal defense to indigent people in Washoe County. That core mission will never change. However, the justice system and the needs of the community have changed, especially in the last 13 years, as we've seen the Public Defender's Office go from just providing indigent criminal defense to being a key player in our community, which Mr. Bosler has led the office in that transformation, providing the sources, sometimes the sole source, and also the resources to assist in rehabilitation, recovery from addiction, addressing and assisting those with mental health needs, those facing termination of parental rights, juvenile justice, and also moving forward and exploring restorative justice and forging more public and private relationships to continue the mission that has evolved to become our Public Defender's Office. I'm confident that the Public Defender's Office will meet each and every one of the community's needs. The office is staffed by tremendous, outstanding, ethical, hardworking lawyers, a tremendous staff that is dedicated to the mission and will continue that mission. If you select me today and approve me, I guess, appoint me, I look forward to working through it within the criminal justice system with the district attorney, the courts, and law enforcement where we can to strive to continue to make the system fair, efficient, and smooth running. I look forward to working with you all, the county commission. I look forward to working with staff, but I most significantly, I look forward to working with our community. I thank you all for your confidence in me.
Thank you, Mr. Arascata. It's nice to see you here today, and congratulations. And if you are voted in, and welcome. Commissioner Hartung.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I'd like to start by, I would certainly be happy to make the motion, but before I do that, a bit of disclosure. Mr. Manager, I'm glad you went through the process by which you chose our final candidate. I have known the Arascata family, it's been a long
Forever.
time, John. Of course, Mr. Manager, and you're going to say, of course you did. I did his sister's wedding photography, and his parents, his brothers and sisters, I've known the family. No higher work ethic could be found than Mr. Arascata. And I say that not just because he's been a friend for many years, but because I know that to be true. And I've watched him. And so I'm pleased, Madam Chair, and I would be happy to make the motion to appoint Mr. Arascata to the position of Public Defender.
Thank you very much. Do I have a second? Second. Okay, Commissioner Herman has seconded it. And I see no public comments, which is good for you, by the way. With that being said, Commissioner, or Vice Chair Jung.
Yes, I just would like to place on the record that I would encourage the manager and his staff to do similar selections in such a way that they're not publicly done, because it puts people at such a disadvantage with their own employers if they are shifting. And so we don't usually get the cream of the crop, no offense to the people we have appointed. I mean, we have had great ones come through here, including Mr. Manager, but it is difficult for not only you, but for us to get a clear picture of what do I know what a public defender really needs to have as a background. So I'm glad that you are first to get through that, and I'm sure Mr. Bosler will take good care of you for the transition. And Mr. Bosler, I just have to tell you, thank you so much for your public service, and probably one of the most important jobs at the county. So I appreciate you and all that you've done for justice for many people who are very vulnerable to injustice.
Absolutely. Here, here, we all agree with that.
Thank you.
Okay, I see no more comments. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Please cast your vote on the screen and then affirm your vote above. Motion carries 4-0 with all 4 commissioners voting and Commissioner Lucy absent. And by way of explanation, I will tell you that Commissioner Lucy did share with me that he was very sorry he could not be here to vote for you also.
Thank you. And thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, it's our pleasure. If I may, Madam Chair.
Shall we do a picture?
Yes, but Mr. Bosler, you're not done. Believe me, when you come back, when you actually retire, that's when we're going to talk about you. Looking forward to it.
Mr. Manager, are you joining us? Mr. Bosler? Are we centered? Yeah. Hey. 3, 2, welcome aboard and see you later. Yeah, we won't.
No, it's I'm going to be a non-traditional student because I don't take English or algebra, and so they can find it $86. And so it's going to be I spoke to him up to rugby last year. He came with English from St. Louis this year. Hotel, see if I can do it downtown.
That was painless. That was perfect. I just wear a dress today that looks very similar to that, yeah. Okay. All right, we are ready to move on, and Mr. Manager, I understand we are in need of a closed session?
We are, so item 15 is closed session for the purpose of discussing labor negotiations with Washoe County and/or Truckee Meadows Fire Protection District per NRS 288.220. So when the time comes, the board would recess to the caucus room for that purpose. That brings us to item 16, which is public comment.
Which we will need to do after. No, we can do public comment now. I see no public comment and no public.
We'll ask for it again.
Mr. Manager, or Mr. Watsfield.
We'll ask for it now, and we'll ask for it before
Okay.
adjourning from the closed.
All right, we see no public comment now, so we will close public comment and bring it back to the board.
Item 17 is Commissioner, County Manager's announcements, reports, updates, requests for information, or topics for future agendas.
Anybody have anything? Seeing nothing, we will close that. Mr. Manager, do you have anything? Seeing nothing, we will close that, and then I need a motion to go into closed session.
So moved.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to go into closed session. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. And opposed? Motion carries.
And as a way of explanation, that is for the purpose of labor negotiations per NRS 288.220.
Okay, good. So we are in recess to move to closed session.